Tonight, Vice President Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, will speak, as will former President Barack Obama.
All week on 27 News at 4, we're going to have analysis about what you can expect to hear in those speeches. Joining us now is Howard Schweber, a political science expert from UW-Madison. Professor, thank you for being here again.
Well, thank you for having me.
Day one of the DNC is done, and day two is kicking off now. What have been your main observations and takeaways so far?
Well, it's really striking to compare this to the Republican National Convention, and there are two things that jump out right away. First, the Republican Convention and the Republican campaign is all about Trump and his support. The party is sort of along for the ride. Kamala Harris isn't being presented that way at all. She's being presented as the culmination of the Democratic Party. And you can tell by the lineup of speakers, none of the Republican former presidents or major figures, statesmen, appeared in Milwaukee. But here we have, well, Barack Obama tonight, and we had last night Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama will be speaking, Bill Clinton, right? So all of the biggest figures in the Democratic Party are here. And on day one in particular, the theme very much was, here's Kamala Harris, she is our person. Harris is the party's candidate. And that's an important thing, because one potential weakness Harris might have would be being relatively unknown. And fully 30% of voters in America say they're not 100% sure what she stands for. One way she can solve that problem is by doing sort of the opposite of the Trump move, which is running not as a maverick, wild individualist, but rather as someone who's deeply embedded in the party. The other thing that's really striking about the two is the extent to which the line that stuck from the first day was, we won't go back. Whereas, so in other words, the Harris campaign has settled on a message of looking forward. That's important in a couple of ways. For one thing, it contrasts with Trump's nostalgia. The Trump campaign's message is, we want to go back. Things were better when I was president is basically the entirety of his argument. So on the one hand, you have the looking forward versus looking nostalgic approach. It's also the case that we won't go back is a nice way for Harris to separate herself from Joe Biden while at the same time, claiming the benefits of being part of a governing party establishment. Harris needs to separate herself also from some views she announced in 2020, when she took considerably more left-wing views, and she's been doing that. She's been taking much more moderate positions, but the whole tone of the convention is oriented around making that work. So in those two ways in particular, I think the theme of the convention has been set. And so far, all the speakers have been right on message.
Professor Schweber, like you said, former President Barack Obama is speaking tonight. What are you expecting to hear from him, what his focus might be?
Well, soaring oratory. But aside from that, I would expect Obama to try and hit on a couple of key points. One is to persuade America, particularly Americans who don't know Harris well, that she is like him. Right? If you liked me, you will like her, sort of an unstated message with some obvious resonance. And that she's ready and suitable to be president. That's one of the things you can gain from having ex-presidents as well as the current president giving speeches is, they can say, I've sat in that chair and I can tell you, I give you my personal assurance that Kamala Harris can do the job and will be a good president and so on. The other piece, though, I think is there are 14% of voters in a poll taken just a month ago who were unwilling to vote for either Trump or Biden. Harris is making a strong play for those voters. And for voters like that, someone like Obama, I think, could be a very strong pull, precisely the kind of appeal to, a return to the kind of politics that we thought were better. He's a guy who can deliver that message. Now, going back to an older style of politics sounds like it contradicts the we won't go back message, but really it doesn't, or needn't. The argument can be is, let's get back on track toward progress looking forward. And Barack Obama, is as good as anybody at threading that needle and sort of combining those two themes into a consistent message. So I expect him to focus precisely on that, looking forward by recovering, what we were before 2016 and 2020.
Professor Schweber, we always appreciate you being here. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.